Hi, I'm Phil Pustiowski with FreedomMentor.com. I'm a real estate investor, coach, and mentor. And in this video, I'm going to share with you the secret to flipping houses. You see, this particular lesson, this concept, I didn't learn in a book. I didn't watch it on a television show. I discovered this over a long period of time of not only doing my own deals, but also helping others with theirs. And it was something that at first was kind of a hazy idea, maybe a hunch, but over time it continued to rear its ugly head. And this particular secret comes from the real world of real estate investing. So in order to share with you this secret, I really need to take you inside the anatomy, a summary of how a typical house flip looks, okay? All right, so here's how we're going to do it. I want you to picture for a moment like you're watching maybe an HGTV or an A&E television show on flipping houses. I want you to picture the idea that we're going to find a deal. In fact, the numbers I'm going to give you are a real deal that came across my desk recently. So these are actual numbers of a house that is for sale for $65,000. And this particular house, after quite a few comps were reviewed, it was assessed that maybe if all fixed up it'd sell for $150. Okay, so here we go. So a lot of comps were looked at, and it was estimated that the after repair value was going to be $150. We call it ARV. Okay, this was not arbitrary. This was heavily reviewed and scrutinized. Okay, next, the seller was asking $65, but this particular person was able to get the seller to come down to $60,000. Okay, was the price. You're probably thinking, oh my goodness, this is a home run, right? Okay, well there's more to it. All right. The estimate from the contractor, and by the way, this particular individual, this was not his first rodeo, so knew how to assess the property value and how much it was going to cost to renovate, determined that it was going to cost about $28,000 to fix it up. I'm going to call that rehab. Okay, so far so good, right? Okay, so it's going to take $60,000 to buy it, $28,000 to fix it up, and it could sell for $150. How could you go wrong, right? All right, now the question may become, well, how do you buy this? Okay, good question. The money is going to come from a hard money loan, okay? A hard money loan. And why would a hard money loan be a good option here? For a couple of reasons. Number one, a hard money loan will pay for the price to purchase it along with any closing costs, along with whatever the rehab cost is going to be. So it could be zero money out of your pocket, which is great. And not only that, they may not ask to see your credit or your cash position. In other words, this loan is based strictly on what you're buying for now and what it can sell for. Pretty nice, right? And the other thing to keep in mind is that this is not necessarily cheap. It's going to be 5% plus 15% per year. Okay? So the key to the hard money loan is, of course, to get rid of it as quickly as possible. To buy it, fix it up, and resell as fast as possible. Okay? All right, so this is a real deal. And the reason why I'm breaking this down is I am going to reveal to you the secret to flipping houses. And this is something that almost no one talks about. This is something that is rarely discussed because so few people have done enough deals to do the math long enough over a long enough period of time, different markets, different areas, to know that this is not only a pattern, this is more like truth. Okay, so with all this said and done, when you look at the math, if you were going to borrow 60 plus 28, and you were going to use it for, say, I'm going to use short numbers here because they thought this would take about 2 months to do the rehab. Okay, so I'm going to put 2 months here. And it was also determined, okay, it's going to probably take about 2 months to sell it. So the idea would be that this thing could be in and out in 4 months. Okay, so with 4 months, what you've got is you've got 5% plus, this is really 1.25 per month times 4 months. So you've got another 5%. So this would really be about 10%. So 10% of this is not all that bad, right? Okay, so maybe, by the way, there were some closing costs when they purchased it. So it ended up being about 64 with closing costs. Forgive me for all these numbers, but I'm telling you, it's going to come all together. You're going to really be excited at the end when you see this magical moment. Okay, so 64 plus 28, where are we at? Get your calculator out? All right, now you're at 92. Okay, so 92,000 at 10% of 92 is going to be 9,200. So really, you could be in this deal when it's all said and done. You got your 64 plus your 28 plus your 9,200. I mean, you could be in this thing at just a little over 100. I mean, literally, you'd be at 101,200. And you're going to be selling at 150. How can you go wrong? Well, let's look at what really happened. See, because if you could be out of this at 101 and then you sell it for 150, you're looking at a pretty significant profit, right? Well, this is what happens in the real world, and this is what happened on this deal, and this is what happens most of the time. Okay, first of all, this wasn't the full amount. What happened was there were some delays, some issues, some things that were overlooked, and it ended up being 34,000. Okay, so that bumps it up by 6, but that's not the end of the world. The next problem was it wasn't 4 months. It became 8 months. It became 8 months because not only did this thing take 2 extra months, this went to 4 months, the other issue you had to deal with was it didn't sell for 150. No, the real estate agent that had helped with the comps, they all seem to have missed the boat here. It ended up being 140, which is not, again, not the end of the world, but it sold for 140. And the buyer wanted their closing costs paid. So that's going to take out another 3%, which that really hits you. That takes you down to about 136 now, really, is what the offer came in at. So you got 136, and then you've got 34, but the buyer wanted some more work done after the inspection came through, so that added another 2,000 to it. So now you're at 36,000. How are you doing? Okay. Now this was really 8 months, so what this ended up costing was not 9,200. The amount borrowed ended up being 100,000 because of the extra work here. So this ended up being 15,000. So 15,000 for the money, 36 to fix it up. Sold really for 136 or so. And again, they were in it at 64. And then there was closing costs involved when it was all said and done. When everything was said and done. And by the way, I've got a blog post about this that shows the breakdown as well. When it was all said and done, the investor made $11,000 because he had to pay for commissions as well. $11,000. True story. And this happens like every day of the week. Happens all the time. So this, herein lies the secret to flipping houses. It's understanding this right here, this saga that unfolds in every town in America as investors think they're going to outsmart the model. But they're not. Because what ends up happening is houses always sell for about 8 to 10% less than you expected them to sell for. I don't know why that is. I mean, it doesn't matter how good you get at looking at comps. It doesn't matter how good you get at knowing how much a property is going to sell for. It always sells for less. That always happens. It doesn't matter how good you are. It's just it's like this law of the land. The next thing is renovation costs. They always cost you about 20% more than you expected, 20 to 25%. I don't care how good you get at estimating renovations. It still costs you 20% more than you expected. Why? Again, it's like a law of the land. I mean, literally, after doing thousands of real estate deals, I've seen this over and over and over and over again. And it doesn't have to do with your experience level. It has to do with how this thing just flies. And so what happens is you've got more expense here than you thought. It usually takes twice as long as you thought to fix it up, twice as long as you thought to actually sell it, and it usually costs, you get about 10% less than what you were expecting for it. So when it's all said and done, oftentimes the net profit that goes into your pocket when you buy a home for 60, put in what you think is 28, which becomes 36, hard money loan, when it's all said and done, you're end up making a small amount of money. It just happens. And so what some people do is they look at it and they say, well, what the problem was is you shouldn't use the hard money loan because that cost $15,000 when it's all said and done. Well, maybe, but he didn't have to use any of his own cash or credit, and he was able to get all his fix-up costs paid for. That's pretty nice. In addition, $15,000 for the hard money loan would have been a lot less if you would have sold the house faster. Does that make sense? So it could have been a better deal if you would have moved quicker. Rehab cost. Well, part of it is he hired a contractor, but it's just hard to get rehab cost all that further down until I reveal the secret here I'm about to share with you in just a second. And so when it's all said and done, it's not that this person could have done necessarily a better job here, better job here, better job here, better job here. He could have. The real problem is the model. The real problem is buying a house with real money, fixing it up all the way, and then selling it to a retail buyer. In most cases, that model is not going to be your best and most economically productive route. Now, why do people do this? Well, maybe they enjoy the satisfaction of turning an ugly duckling into a beautiful swan. Or maybe they just don't know a better way. Would you like to hear a better way? Okay, good. I'm glad. Because that's what I'm going to share with you. Okay, so let's take this entire scenario from the beginning and let's do it based on the secret to flipping houses. Here's how we're going to do it. Number one, we have a seller who you can talk down to $60,000. Okay? Do you think it's possible to sell this to another investor for $70,000? The same deal. Of course you can. Because they think the value, which you did as well, and which the investor did as well, was $150. So they see $150 and they say, okay, $70, I got to put $30 into it, I'm still at $100. It still looks like a great deal, doesn't it? So is it possible to simply flip this to another buyer for $70? Yes, it is. And that is the secret to flipping houses. The secret is to flip the properties to another type of investor for more, because a quick nickel beats a slow dime. All right, now, there's a special type of investor buyer that's most likely to give you the top end of the investor buyer market. And that is what I call a contractor investor buyer. Who these people are is people that are not watching this video right now. These people are not educating themselves on how to be creative real estate investors for the most part. These are people that are full-time contractors that 1 to 2 deals each year they do on the side. They use some home equity line of credit or just a little bit of cash they got lying around, and they buy houses, they fix them up and resell them, but they only do like 1 to 2 per year. And they are also contractors. So that means their cost to renovate is a lot cheaper than yours would be if you're not a contractor. And also, think about this. If they are a contractor and their results go straight to their bottom line, they'll be more efficient. They'll get the work done faster. They'll get it done cheaper. They'll find creative ways to get work done that's not as expensive. Why? Because their profitability depends on it. Does that make sense? So by locating contractor investor buyers, which is one of the main ways that we teach how to do these wholesale flips, what we also call prehabs, is to locate these people and to flip the property to them. And that way, you get your quick nickel over your slow dime. So in this case, you would have made, what? $10,000 in about a month's worth of work. And I see this every day of the week. It works. This is how the smartest investors are most successful with flipping houses. They don't do what's on television. They don't get the sledgehammer out and knock a wall through. They're not into that business. They're into the business of finding ways in which to make the most money the fastest and the easiest. And that involves flipping houses to the right type of investor buyer rather than you doing the work and then reselling it. Are there exceptions to that rule? Of course there are. For example, if the house requires absolutely no work, we do what's called a retail wholesale, where we just literally flip it to a retail buyer. But this example was about houses that need a lot of work. Anytime a house needs any sort of significant work, we teach our students to flip to contractor investor buyers. Maybe they make 5, 10, 15, as we've seen as much as 25, 30,000. But they don't have to go through all the rigmarole of 8 months of driving back and forth to the property to make sure the contractor's doing his job and everything in between. Because at the end of the day, you make about the same amount of money. I know I use the phrase, a quick nickel beats a slow dime. Usually, a quick nickel it beats a slow nickel. All right, well, this is Phil Pustiowski here. I'm with freedommentor.com. I'm a real estate investor, but also a coach and a mentor. And in this video, I showed you the secret to flipping houses. It's a secret that so few people know about because they don't have the same vantage point that I do. I mean, I have literally seen thousands of real estate transactions. I have broke down the settlement statements. I've seen which players make the most money and which ones don't. And this lesson right here, could save you tens of thousands of dollars in years of frustrations. So take it from me. The secret to flipping houses is to flip properties to contractor investor buyers before you close on the property with a hard money loan and go through all the work of fixing up and reselling to a retail buyer. All right, thanks so much for watching this video, and check out my other videos on YouTube. I've got a whole bunch more about how to invest in real estate productively and efficiently, and you can also check out our website at freedommentor.com.